Well, fuck it. We're live. There we go. Sorry. Hey, Joe, Pat, Patrick. Hey, welcome to it's the first show in like 12 months. Thanks for taking time to join us today.
Thank you for having me. My first time on live. Let's see how horrendous the comments are.
I'm excited.
That's perfect. Pat, you were on the last time we did this live.
That's great. I mean, it's been a long time, huh?
Been a year. So we did this right to start January. We're getting ready for the new year. In fact, I think I was looking at that show and I said, getting back on track. We'll do it every week after this.
Hell yeah. Yeah, man.
Nice.
Yeah, I've been enjoying the podcast though. The Sean Gordon Murphy, Kindlon the Renegade, it's good stuff.
Yeah. No, it's good stuff. That was fun hearing you and Sean talk about how nice it is to own land for 2 hours.
Yeah, that was great. Yo, can we give some respect to Sean Gordon Murphy for getting his shit off? He's at the juncture in his life where he's doing well enough for himself, has enough self-confidence that he just gets his shit off. Listening to him is a pleasure because something we talked about, Perch. People are scared. People are really scared to say anything because they fear reprisal. And Sean Gordon Murphy is past that point in his life. so God bless. I thought it was a really interesting one. Haven't listened to the
Philip Kennedy Johnson.
Yeah, Philip Kennedy Johnson.
Yeah,
haven't listened to it. You don't have to tell me, Perch. That guy he's a peer, not a but I don't know him. So I never want to badmouth anybody. Is he not stiff, but he seems like a very direct, sort of military-minded fella in the few interviews I've heard from him. Does he got any sort of
personality?
No, is there any like color commentary, or is he like very to the point?
No, there is. He is to the point. I mean, he is a military man, right? So that it fits the personality, and he's a dad and all the rest. So, but he's got a sense of. I mean, there's a sense of humor in there for sure. It is nice. I love that interview because he talked like somebody who wanted to write Superman, and I meet a lot of people who are writing this stuff and hate the fact that they're on it, and it's nice to meet somebody who does. It's cool, but anyway. But well, getting into so let me hit this. This is your first time. I like to barrage you with stupid shit. It was funny getting back in track of putting this up. I had not done this in a while. Back to PowerPoint, always the creative person tool of choice. Why not? But Pat and Patrick. Okay, so we just finished a Kickstarter for you, Patrick. We kicked one off, Pat. Is that right?
Yeah.
And I give all the credit for mine's success to Pat. So I have no doubt that Pat's is going to crush as his all do. Which, by the way, Pat, we gotta talk about your kind of unbroken streak here. You've been killing it for a long time. Do you see yourself as more business minded than the average creator, or did you just have no option so you learned?
I see myself as more business-minded, but not, I both more business-minded and also more creatively minded. I see myself first as a writer's writer. I put my shit up there with anybody else, but the comics landscape to me is just so anti-business to the point where, they're so afraid of the idea of being associated with capitalism that they're almost afraid of money. They're afraid of marketing. They're afraid of pushing themselves out there and trying things that would appear to be, they would say money hungry. I would say savvy, So, but yeah, for sure I would. Yeah.
I would follow that though, Pat. Oh, sorry. Just real quick.
No,
I thought you're never supposed to say your writing's good. You're supposed to say you're awful. Everyone's better than you. They should credit the flatter before they credit me.
Yep.
And then you bash every other peer writer you have in multiple DM groups.
That is the way of things. Yeah.
Yeah. You're really not, I don't know how you think you're supposed to be successful in comics this way, Pat.
Humble to the face and knife to the back. That's the way you do it.
It's true.
Yeah.
No, it's true. I mean, I know writers who have they strive to get every credit on the cover, which is cool, but they almost put a strike through of their own name,
I'm going to. This is very early in a podcast to arrive here. Where I make myself
not early at all. We're drinking.
Where I make myself the heel. I completely disagree, Pat. I think that there is.
Let's hear it.
Seeing all the names on the cover is, to me, like the dumbest thing. I understand that artist and writer are in principle equal partnership on many books, right? But
yeah.
So even though it is my belief that you treat this like the movies, you treat it like there is the above the line, below the line, and the star gets the top billing. Like cartoonist kayfabe just did an Alan Moore book. No disrespect to the artist, I don't remember who it is, but Alan Moore's name was, I think, the only credit on the cover, maybe, right?
Okay.
And we can look at that as wrong because the four of us all respect comic art, and we say, oh well, like it doesn't matter who the draw is. We should credit, and I agree with that. But by the time we get to editor, there's got to be a below the line. Otherwise, we're going to start crediting the printer as well.
I do agree there. I'll say this. I have started to put my editor on certain titles because she spearheads my universe with me, and she works creatively in that way. But however, if I were to say, at Scout, for instance, I have a book at Scout and we're assigned an editor. We've had 2 editors work on the book. To me, they're playing the role of Scout editor. It wouldn't make sense to have them on the title there, But yeah. I do know that creators do, they push harder and harder and harder. I think that bit bigger for writer and artist than colorist and letterer totally makes sense, though. I think that pushing any more on the cover is unusual.
But you have to keep in mind, though, it's a way to pay no money and make yourself look great.
That's what it is. That's very much what it is, yeah. And I mean, what confuses me in trying to see who did what is the tendency of writers to put themselves not first or not even second. You'll see some books where the order of the credit is different in every single book. And then you open to the IFC, and even some writers have the roles removed. So it's just written as if they're the members of a band. So, I mean, Patrick, I more agree with you than not there for sure.
Well,
look at everybody getting nice at the end.
Well, but I'll take it one step further. So I'm looking at what Perch has on the PowerPoint at the moment. Yeah. Pat, you and I share a letterer who is, in my view, one of the unsung talents working right now. And I shouldn't say unsung because other letterers respect him and he gets his nods at awards time and all that. But Jim Campbell is one of these like quiet artists who like really does the work. And I'd have to ask him, I don't know if he even cares about having his shit on the cover, because the reality is that that the person who is interested in hiring Jim is going to look at the credits, and the person who is not interested in hiring Jim is never going to notice one way or the other. Do you know what I'm saying?
I think that you're right too. I mean, if you look at my cover, right, he has my name and the interior artist larger, and his name is Shannon smaller. I didn't tell him to do that. He chooses to do that on every cover that he's credited.
Now, I can't help but notice, so in your comic here, Patrick, you kept the names really small, which did leave more room for the boobs.
Yeah, and actually Jim appears on my cover credits as well. But I don't think that Jim would feel one way or the other about having him as interior credit only. I don't want to speak for him, but my whole thing with it is what sells a book. and because the credit, like Marco, who I do work with at Image, he's arguably much more talented than I am. If he becomes the bigger draw, I would be completely comfortable with putting his name ahead of mine.
Gotcha.
Now, I agree that having some type of format is good, right? Like, so writer, artist, that makes sense. Okay, if that's an agreed format, that's agreed. But when somebody's the draw, you know what I mean? Like, I'm trying to think of an artist with a proper draw. Jim Lee doesn't need a writer. You know what I mean? I just put Jim Lee at the top of the fucking book.
You're done. Yeah.
Yeah. So
no, it's true. It's true.
Yeah.
I think the comics in general is very sensitive about making sure everyone gets their shit off. You know, to the point where when DC announced those books, those graphic novels for younger audiences that were largely written by already existing established YA writers made for the book market. They were bitching online that they made the writer's name as big as the title and the artist's name bigger, but no fucking shit, because that writer is the reason the book exists, period.
Stephen King's name tends to appear very large on Stephen King books.
Yeah. It turns out there's a reason for that. Yeah.
But don't you hear from all these like 7, 8, 9-year-olds just demanding proper credit for artists in the books they read? I mean, they don't shut up about that stuff.
Yeah, the YA is but you know what? You're speaking to Joe. I think you might be suggesting a thing that perhaps it's not young people reading these books most often.
You know what? No, before we get too deep into this, what the fuck is it with all these, like, 20, 30, 40 something year olds on Twitter constantly telling each other that they got to read a book that was like made for an 8-year-old?
Okay.
All the time.
All
the time.
We jumped the shark early.
I see it. So Joe, I see it both ways. Because I love the Mike Baron Punisher run, and when you go back and you revisit it, he's operating on the level of like a horny 12-year-old. It's not.
That's kind of 12-year-old. Yeah. Wait, no, that's something.
So if I can't hammer the YA people when I say, although I will say that 35-year-olds operating in an intentionally infantilized state can be pretty weird at times. I do it with genre fiction a lot. You know what I mean? Like,
I get what you're saying, but I mean, I feel like there's a slight difference, at least, between like, this Punisher run I read as a kid and I'm going back and reading now and there's nostalgia to it, is different than like some like 45-year-old guy on Twitter being like, dude, I just read Eloise and the Magic Chalkboard and it changed my life. You know what I mean? Like,
that purple crayon really took me for an emotional ride.
Times have changed a little bit. Yeah. I was just going to congratulate you on the money you made. So how much, Patrick, where did you end?
Pat, what did we end at, 28?
28, yeah.
Nice.
So that was, now Pat played it close to the vest. I don't know what his expectations were, but that blew my expectations out of the water. And I was, for anybody that saw me on Perch's show and then proceeded to back the book, thank you very much. And I was really impressed.
That's great.
This is a conversation. I don't know how much we want to go into crowdfunding. I don't know if that loses some of the
we'll
viewers,
get there. We'll get there. Yeah.
But it's really it's a more interesting space than people are giving it credit, I think.
Yeah,
it is.
And now that obviously this is coming from a guy who just saw some success there, and everybody who sees some success is like, there's gold in them, there are hills. So like, they proselytize a little bit, but I'm feeling really good, not just about the project. I'm feeling good about that particular space. I think that it might be, I don't want to set off a gold rush of a different type, but if we are going to be in a recession where stores are pulling back in like a very plain and safe sort of fashion, and for indie creators who might not get eyes on their books because we all rely on stores taking a flyer on something saying, yeah, let me give it a shot. If stores are going to be more conservative, crowdfunding may be the thing that gets some people through this recession period. And then I don't know if they're going back. so there's that.
if you can keep the business right, for sure. I mean, as long as you don't lose money in that process, I think it's a lot more power to you. Pat, you just launched. How's your campaign going?
It's going well. Yeah, people told me to be afraid of December, of the holidays, of recession, but it turns out it just so happens I'm recession proof. Okay.
Okay. Wow. Yeah, young Jeezy over here. Yeah.
There you
That's
go.
too big to fail, but that sounds like a hit. I don't mean it that way.
No, but it's all the worries that people have about Kickstarter and crowdfunding, I directly ask Kickstarter. I say, what are the metrics for December? What are the metrics for this recession right now? Are the numbers down? Should I worry about if I were to launch this in January instead, would I do better? The answer across the board is they're not down. Fucking December's fine. So I'm like, okay, I believe you. I trust you. And I launch, and it's beautiful.
Well, congratulations, both of you. It's awesome. And congratulations to Joe. I've got to give some credit to Joe. Joe pitched in and helped me a bunch this year. He was on the channel a lot. We did not nearly enough, and that's on me. But Joe, you've got 2 books coming out.
Yeah. What was it? Dahlia in the Dark from Mad Cave Studios. My second Mad Cave book. The first issue came out earlier this month. It's going to be 6 issues. So the next issue comes out. It's like January 18th, whatever that Wednesday is. But yeah, I'm really enjoying it. It's urban fantasy, crime noir. Really enjoying that. And then Happy Holidays came out last week, but you can still read it in time for Christmas. It's a Christmas horror one-shot. I got to write Reggie, Midge, Moose. It was a wonderful time for me. So feel free to check that out. You don't want to bother with a physical copy. Maybe you can't make it in time. They got it digital. You can buy it right through Archie. You could go through Amazon Kindle if you want to deal with that. But yeah, whatever you want to do, buy it, read it. It's a fun time.
And it looks like Betty and Veronica are about to engage in some necrophilia there.
It does.
Yeah, I mean, that's a tired plot at this point, but people still dig it.
Yeah, well, it is a holiday time. I wanted to ask you guys before we get into all this. Do you guys have a favorite holiday comic book or movie, or what's a favorite Christmas holiday movie for you guys? Who's gonna pop out Die Hard?
Oh boy! Oh boy! Oh boy!
Okay. So I saw somebody on Twitter suggest that L.A. Confidential is a Christmas movie.
Okay.
Obviously, that stretches there's just Christmas lights and there's a Christmas party. I don't think that there's any other connection to Christmas whatsoever. However, if it makes it a Christmas movie, that would be my favorite.
Okay, that's a good movie.
Yeah, great movie. Otherwise, I'm game for the classics. Christmas Vacation, obviously a classic of my generation.
Sure.
Scrooged, underrated.
Yeah, Scrooged completely. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
What else falls in the? It's a Wonderful Life is actually. I think that people of a certain younger than me are not inclined to check that movie out because black and white, whatever, can't relate. It's a bunch of people overacting or whatever.
Yeah.
Deeply affecting movie if you're in the spirit. A really you'll get a little teary. You'll feel away. You'll go and hug family.
My kids, my 2 daughters just watched Polar Express for the first time, and they liked it more than I thought they would, despite the weird animation. They watched Christmas Story a couple days ago and couldn't have been more bored.
Really?
Yeah, I think that's a generational thing for sure.
They love the tongue on the ice, and then the boy beating the shit out of the bully, and that was about it. Those are the highlights.
Yes, I'm trying. So my stepchild is. It occurred to me he doesn't watch comedies at all. So we're going to do Christmas Vacation because I just started thinking if kids are getting all of their humor from memes, this is going to be a rough go for me. What if I live another 40 years? You know what I mean? And I got to deal with meme humor for the last 25 of it. It's going to be terrible. So I want to set him in motion for actual comedy.
Someone mentioned Iron Man 3. How about that one?
I feel like it's more of a New Year's movie than a Christmas movie, but I get what they're saying. But
I think underrated.
I really like Iron Man 3.
Yeah, underrated.
That's definitely that's a fuck the haters for me.
Yeah.
For Iron Man
Is that
3.
one hated? I mean, I've enjoyed that one too. I didn't know that it was.
People genuinely act like it's a bad movie, as if Iron Man 2 wasn't awful. Like,
okay, but now I'm going to jump out and say Iron Man 2. I've disengaged from the Marvel movies. The last Doctor Strange, I was like, you know what? I think I'm cashed.
Sure.
It's time for me to leave the casino. But the up through Iron Man 2, look, is it trash? Yeah, it might be trash. But is it like I like the first Doctor Strange movie because it reminded me of reading a comic book?
Sure.
That second Iron Man reminds me of some like shit Armor Wars era Iron Man comic that maybe if you took it on its own merits, it wouldn't work. But as part of a series, you're like, solid issue. You know?
Okay.
So
okay.
I'll stand by.
Sure.
I like this Christmas in Dallas cover here of Santa, or Kingpin Santa. Spider-Man's about to beat the shit out of him. Maybe it's just because I'm in Dallas and it's 12 degrees right now, but
yeah.
That's a Dallas Times Herald feature right there.
Yeah.
And can I ask you fellas a question?
Well,
so the bar across and the two busts, the two heads. Why can nobody make that work now? Is it just too much? Like we feel that you're doing some pastiche and it's just hokey, or did suddenly all of our design sense change and that we just don't like these things anymore? Because I'd love to put that at the top of my books, but like I see Savage Dragon do it and it feels too it feels looking backwards. It feels looking backwards.
Yeah.
And
I think
is
it's
that
both.
the reason?
Yeah.
Okay, no.
I think it's both. It's like when like I grew up and I would see I was in like the MySpace emo era, and if you look at the girls who were dressing a certain way then, that's the era. But now that shit's coming back and you see young girls dressing that way now, and something's just a little bit off. It doesn't look like it's from the era. That to me is like what that is. It doesn't, because the overall aesthetic of everything else has changed. Our logo aesthetics have changed. The coloring has changed. Everything else has changed. So when people take a certain element and add it to an otherwise modern product, it just looks different.
It's true. It's too connected to a time period is the problem. We know it as the way comics used to be, and so when it shows up now, it automatically goes nostalgia. And
it's a lot. Yeah. It's a lot better now that you can't have an issue without like a cell phone being incorporated into it, like ever. You just can't. You cannot. And it's and again, I people bring up the food and stuff like that too. And for a while, I was like, it's not that bad, but oh my god, I never want to see a person eat again.
Yeah, I like fast reaction as we've switched frames here.
So I'm going to look up a thing. I don't want to get the credits wrong, but there's a topic that's burning in me because of something I saw on Twitter. If you guys have a moment, I'm sure that this has been discussed on the channel. Are we in the worst period for color, or our sensibilities have they changed and I haven't kept up?
For color.
So I'm going to go to Google Images so that I get the credit correctly.
Okay.
On Twitter today, I saw something that I was just so bothered by, and it's
let's see.
It's a DC. It's I don't know how to share. How do I share this?
You can't. If I release it, it'll be very difficult. But tell me what.
Okay. Don't worry about it. Look at the cover of Batman Fear State Volume 5. Okay. Now, I'm not here to disrespect any colorist, right? That's like not what I'm on this channel to do. Is that rough on anybody's eyes?
It is. So it's funny you mention that, because I was talking with Larry King, who did a comic book crowdfunded comic. I helped take care of that a couple of years ago. And that's what he was wanting to talk about as well. We had some technical difficulties, but the coloring has changed. And it's a little bit, it reminds me of when Photoshop first started becoming more mainstream and everybody was really excited to use lens flare on every.
Yes.
It feels like we're in that era right now where you're seeing the lines get completely faded away by the color, and it's people are using gradients in a strange. I mean, it's just.
That's true.
I think we're in a rough time. I agree, and there is almost a resistance to just having the kind of the flat shaded colors that we used to have that look good, look solid, popped on the page. So I'm with you. I think I know where you're going, and I'm with you.
Yeah. I agree. I love simple colors, but yeah, continue.
But is that a generational thing? Like, does this look good to somebody that is 20 years younger than I am? Is it just the way of things, or is somebody looking at this going, I love the way that because everything is accented, that nothing makes visual sense anymore? Is there somebody saying that to themselves, being like, oh, what I'm really enjoying is how those two figures in the front are completely invisible to my eye.
No, it's true.
I mean,
am I crazy? And I'm not knocking this colors because this might be a mandate. I have no idea.
No, for sure.
I think that, I think that certain things are objectively bad, but I think that what does get lost is that when the transition between certain styles becomes a trend. I mean, the early 2000s, right? Coloring was in a bad state there. They hadn't really figured out how to effectively render digitally very well. I think that coloring got better when we were out of that phase because we began to see colorists, instead of striving to figure out how something could look good, they began to experiment with what they already knew was good. And I think that as the styles advance and as things change, I think that we're finding ourselves in another transition state, maybe even with art as a whole in comics too.
Yeah, I agree.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. I think that right now, art as a whole definitely looks worse in general. The average comic book now looks worse than it did, I'd say, 5 years ago. And I think that in 5 years, things will even out and look better again, and probably different than it does now.
I think so too. I think there's something that happened with digital tools people started using to do the art, where there were some shortcuts that could be used. I've talked to a couple of artists who, based on what they're using Procreate or some of the different products out there, there's some shortcuts they can use in the art, and it's showing up. It feels like we're in this awkward teenage years of people learning how to do digital.
Yeah,
and it's for fuck's sake, I mean, one thing, if artists are listening, please up the resolution when you're drawing on your tablets. When you send it in, it doesn't look like shit. I mean, come on, just start bigger. It drives me insane when you can see the pixelation on the page because somebody fucked up the art.
But also plots suck, and I'd love to talk to Pat and Patrick about this because
Speaking of the books on this page,
because if I love your opinions and where you think some of this is coming from, because I don't know about you guys, but I feel like every time I go to the shop, it's like the big two are recycling the same stories over and over again. But people then do that thing where they're like, oh, the indies got everything going on. And then I swear, I go and I check all of the smaller publishers, and every comic, I'm like, ooh, it's a new #1. What's this? Let's see, a guy's down on his luck, and then something strange happens that gives him something he wants, but then there's a sinister twist at the end. And then you put it down, and you pick up another comic, and it's the same thing. Or then you're like, okay, I'm going to go over to the sci-fi comics. All right. There's so much here.
Joe hates Radiant Black.
Well, okay, so sameness. Did anybody read the Mark Waid? Forgive me. I believe there was 2 artists on the run. The one is great. The Daredevil that he did a few years ago. Does anybody recall this?
Yeah.
Chris Samney, one of the artists on that.
Oh, okay, Samney. Thank you. Yes, Samney's great. So that book told some small Daredevil stories, with the exception of there's a Foggy is the health crisis thing, but largely it's small, right? And all it did was bring character back to back to base, back to homeostasis, back to something familiar. Don't need to change everything.
Yeah.
And for me personally, because I just love stories that kind of touch your heart a little bit and are done. I loved that run until it went off the rails and was shit. But whatever, we all go off the rails eventually. You know what I mean?
Why not?
So,
yeah.
But here's the thing: is I was actually moved by those issues because I thought how delighted I would be if Marvel did this. If they just got two major talents and said, go back to base, tell stories that you wanted to tell when you were reading this book. Don't shoot for the moon. Don't think about going long. Just think about what you would do if every issue mattered. And then I thought, and nobody gives a shit. And I got sad because what I want and what I think still the average reader wants may be very different at this point. So,
well, I mean, we're testing that theory out now because Foggy has superpowers now, and so does Mary Jane. Is
that true?
Oh yeah,
Foggy have superpowers?
He absolutely does. He's part of the new ninja hand, and he's got powers now. So,
are we? I thought we were past the point of Jimmy Olsen having like an insect head. I thought we were past that.
No, we're back to it. Yeah.
Oh God.
Well, okay. Now this is. I love that. Marvel's is really proud of having never done a crisis event, even though they just haven't called it a crisis.
I was gonna say that's a scam. Yeah.
But they that's a mark of pride. Like they're always like, we haven't had to scrap everything and start from start from scratch because unlike DC, because we know what we're doing, and it's like, no, you don't. But they so desperately need a clean slate, but instead they're doing exactly what you were saying. It's like 1950s DC, and it's like, ooh, Foggy's got powers now, and so does Mary Jane.
I read the headline today, Mary Jane has luck powers or whatever, and I there's no reason I should care. I'm not reading that book right now. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not following Spider-Man at this time. So there's no reason on earth that I should feel such a way, but I went,
but the thing is, comics today, the thing that makes them so great is they're more relatable than the impenetrable comics of the past and your youth, even.
The world outside your window. Yeah.
How do you make Mary Jane more relatable? You give her powers that no one on Earth will ever have.
Yeah. That is what I feel bonded to her now.
They did give her a suit of pudding, which does kind of play into some of the fantasies about Mary Jane, just kind of in a weird direction.
Yeah, I don't know, Pat. As a writer, what's your perspective? I feel like my take on this, and you tell me if yours is different. Is you've got two types of personalities in comics. You got people who are desperately scared, and then people that say, "I have to make the biggest mark that I can." And the desperately scared are not going to produce anything of value. And I've got to make the biggest mark I can. That person has to be of superior talent to make that ambition pull off. And so, like, how many major talents do we have right now? Do you know what I mean? Like, no disrespect to anybody, but like, how many? So with those two things being the option, you only have things that don't matter and things that break everything.
I mean, it's true. I mean, especially those are the kind of writers, those two options that end up on the mainstream shit for sure. I just think that when we're talking mainstream and even indies, the barrier for entry in comics for writers is lower than any other creative field. It is easier to get into comics and be published than any other field I can think of. Theater, film, TV, video games, anything. And we see writers working for mainstream publishers that are unpublishable, and they just make it through. And yeah, some of them are scared, and some of them are so ambitious but don't have the vision or talent to match, and it is making the industry worse. I don't know the fix of it, because the truth is that there are so many comics. And I mean, The problem is kind of fixing itself in some ways because people aren't buying those comics, you know. But man, I think that, you know, I personally, I always do go back to crowdfunding. That's my main shit. I think that crowdfunding is sort of this, when we remove the publisher, that third party sort of gatekeeper, we connect the creator and the reader directly. Same thing with Webtoon, right? Same thing with all these different kinds of disruptive forms of distribution. Bad writers, horrible artists will not continue to work on these platforms. I think the more that we get out of the DM equals the comics industry, the better and more healthy of a creative industry we'll get. Because the writing in comics right now, I mean, I can hardly read anything. When I read something that I enjoy, I make it a point to befriend that writer, that artist. I find talent and skill and savvy so uncommon in our industry. It's insane.
Well, Pat, let me say that poor sales only impact your publishing future if you acknowledge the poor sales. You know what I mean? So if you just ignore them, you're good. no concerns.
You know?
But can I say something controversial about a fellow that I don't know?
Oh no, absolutely not. That's not what we do.
Well, I'm going to say something. I hope that you're all familiar with his work. So voice is important. And now everything Pat just said is true. That I would love to see, particularly on the big two stuff. Sometimes capable is the bar, right? Sometimes like I went back and read. I've now read every single Luke Cage every single Luke Cage book that there's ever been, right? Like, so I just made it a like, hey, this is going to be my year, right? So I read everything. And, you know, as we're saying, this is maybe a fallow time for writing in comics. There was some real dog shit back then too, of course. But I guess my point is, well, I'm having a hard time formulating my point, but you're
not drinking like the rest of us. You're in Australia.
No, actually, maybe I'm dehydrated. I need my water.
Yeah, exactly.
But okay, hold on. Sorry. You guys talk while I try to revisit my.
You'll get there. It's okay. It's weird looking at this screen. By the way, Joe, and Pat, the three of us were on. We're talking about getting ready for the year, and what one of the pages was. Saga's coming back. Yes. Marvel's got Judgment Day. They're killing the Justice League. Whoa, what do we think? And now it's all played out. And what's been the reaction? Is it closer to?
It's all played out.
Is it wet fart noise, or is it just we're glad it's done?
I mean, what used to be a big superhero event that would be the talk of the comics industry, even as recently as Secret Empire, it just doesn't happen anymore. People seem to not be reading these books. People largely seem to not give much of a fuck. I heard a lot more about Saga coming back than I did about these events, but the Saga conversation was more, it actually came back. You know, all these series. I mean, for example, who I feel the worst for in all of comics is Joe Eisma from Morning Glories. Nick Spencer has let that motherfucker high and fucking dry.
It's funny. I just had that thought. I just had that thought the other day.
Yeah, man, it's fucked up.
Because I almost reached out to him and was like, "Hey, man, I got a good relationship with Image. So do you." But I was like, I don't know what I would do with this. But anyway, I remembered what I wanted to say, if you don't mind.
Yes. Okay.
Voice. Capable writing. This is where I was going with reading so much of Power Man and whatever. There was just some stewards, not necessarily visionaries, right? Just people that could carry the ball a couple more yards.
100%.
And sometimes that's just what you're looking for from periodical comics, right? Somebody that can just get through those 6 issues. Let's keep the ball rolling on this character and let's advance a little bit. And then hopefully there's a visionary just around the corner. Mm-hmm. But then you want a voice. You want the visionary to have a voice when he does show up. And I was thinking about creators with an actual voice, writers with an actual voice. So I'm down on artists right now broadly, as you guys are as well. But I can still find some major talents. You know what I mean? Like there's still a lot of really good. But the is the guy's name Mark Russell? Is that the?
Yeah, he's a writer.
Yeah, Mark Russell.
He
So
writes things. Yeah.
I don't know this fellow from Adam, right? Never met him.
Oh boy, I'm gonna like what's about to be said, I think.
I don't know if, well, you're gonna have like it if you're not a fan. But here's what it is. He is one of the few writers at this moment who has a voice.
That's true. I agree.
It's a shrill, annoying voice.
Well, that's true. Yeah.
But it is a voice. And should this get back to him, I want you to understand, I admire, I think that you're a good writer. You just have a different sensibility than I do. You know what I mean? It's kind of like ain't I a stinker? You know what I mean? Like, look at this funny thing that I did, sort of thing. And if you'd like a controversial opinion, he's doing Zdarsky better than Zdarsky, because Zdarsky is just Zdarsky's a personality that is like, ain't I a stinker? I've got so many, like, look out, and like, but that doesn't manifest in his writing. His writing is like,
you know, Zdarsky did just give Foggy Nelson powers. So I mean,
you know what? I take it back.
No, I think what you're saying actually holds up quite well.
But my point is that, like, Mark Russell, who is and sorry, Mark Russell, I didn't mean to make you the topic of a conversation here. I just you were on my mind because I think about voices.
He's not listening. Yeah.
Okay. Well, I think about voices a lot, and Mark Russell has one, and I want to latch onto that. You know what I mean? Like, I want to say, like, oh, like a guy with a voice, how great! But it's just such a different voice than anyone that I would be drawn to.
Right.
So, like, and I think that that's the case for a lot of readers right now. Is like they might begrudgingly go, that guy's got his own thing going on. Just also don't like it.
I picked up.
That's true. And
I got a Mark Russell signed. Not all robots. So
not all robots.
A lot of people listening are going to be very excited for me.
I've seen Russell now at 3 cons kind of in a row, and he's looked thoroughly miserable in every single one. He just sits there pissed off, and I don't know what is going on and what kind of books he's doing or what's going on. But I would love to ask him at some point, like, okay, 2 solid years. You just look like you'd love to just murder everybody in this room right now.
You know, one thing I do have to say about what he did with Flintstones.
Yeah,
everyone acted like, and this Mark wasn't the one saying this. Like, people on Twitter and stuff acted like, oh my God, he revitalized the Flintstones to talk about important issues and things like that are affecting people. And it's like, none of you have ever watched the Flintstones because they did that in the fucking cartoon, you idiots. Like,
listen, I don't know if at this juncture in my life I can get into a Flintstones conversation, but I'm
never told to get into one. Yeah.
You think it's a yabba dabba don't?
Yeah.
Dear God. Okay.
So, but here's the thing, right? Is you raise a good point, Joe. And this is me doing a little bit of cleanup because I don't want Mark Russell to punch me in my jaw.
He might.
A lot of times
he's not. He's got like a little. He could.
Sure. Yeah. But here's the thing: is a lot of times it's not what you're doing. It's how people are talking you up that can sometimes be a turnoff, right? So, like, if you go into something with elevated expectations because what you're reading, people like the chatter on something, it can be difficult to come back down to earth when you actually confront the printed page, you know? So maybe that's part of the problem, but it's kind of like I'm giving a shout out in a weird critical way, which is that this man has a voice. I just, you know, it's not for me, but can you fellas, each of you, can you name a writer that has a voice at this moment?
Well, I mean, there's voices that are annoying. I mean, for what it's worth, you know, Bendis got popular because he had a unique voice.
No doubt.
It's just that unique voice was it didn't really evolve, and it kept being the same unique voice over and over and over again, and applied weirdly to characters at times, and it burned itself out. I think there's a lot of writers that fit that category. They have a unique voice, but it doesn't evolve.
I've been thinking about this too, that these unique voices also begin to be resented when they become influential.
Yes.
For example, two writers, I mean, kind of in comics, one of them, Joss Whedon and Diablo Cody. When they were writing dialogue as they were, no one else was writing that way. They had a very singular voice that then became very influential. And now people look back at their original dialogue and say, oh, that's corny. And yeah, it's corny. And everyone sounds that way because they started that trend, you know. And same with Bendis, you know. Bendis writes in that sort of like Aaron Sorkin way that is applied to comics. And then when people started to copy that and to follow that same kind of vibe, it became corny. And people look back at Bendis and go, oh, you're corny for doing what you do, even though he's the one who started it. So that does happen with voices for sure. But man, as far as a singular voice now, it's hard to say. I think that Charlie Stickney on White Ash and Galarian has a very strong voice. Homie Patrick Kennedy Johnson, right?
Yeah.
All right, so him
or Philip Kennedy Johnson,
Philip Kennedy Johnson, yeah.
Give me another patent here,
right? Yeah.
So
I was impressed by him in a very specific way. For some reason, I read the horrible Empire crossover, right? Dog shit. But when I read his tie-in, a Captain America book, I was reading it and I was kind of stunned that it seemed actually patriotic.
Yeah.
And it seemed unafraid of being a patriotic comic about what it is to be an American soldier. And that alone stood out to me. I thought that before I even knew that he was a soldier. I mean, I'm not sure if he's Army or Navy or whatever, but I know that he served. And I didn't know when I read that, but it clearly read as something that stood out from this sort of subversive take on Captain America that people feel that they have to put out there, you know? So yeah, no, but I do agree that sort of unique voice is very rare. I think that now, especially reading mainstream comics, you see these voices that are so influenced by each other and influeed by how people speak on social media. You know, you have these characters talking like no one talks except people tweeting. This dialogue reads like cocksucking tweets. It's fucking awful. And that's
speaking of awful tweets, though, we could keep going, but I did want to throw out, at least as another thing to talk about, AI art is now the big fucking thing everybody wants to deal with.
This is a very hot take that I'm looking at right now.
So I'll just throw in before we dive in real quick. I would say Daniel Warren Johnson.
Oh yeah, okay.
But and I say this as someone who genuinely really enjoys his work, you know, especially you know, a cartoonist himself, a writer, artist. It feels like in a better time for the industry, he would be like, he wouldn't necessarily like stand tall alone in that area, but it just feels like we're not getting new work from, you know, Paul Pope or, you know, Darwin Cooks passed away, Tim Sales passed away, and like the kind of people that could do that either have passed or aren't really doing it right now.
It's pretty much him and Heron are the two guys that you would, and Tradmore as well. And it's possible, you know, they might not even debate this at a different time. They might be almost the B team of like the kind of voice artists, right? The artists with a real style and real voice. They might cop to that, because I don't know if any of those gentlemen see themselves as on the same level as, you know, like a Mignola, but like but I think I'm going to clarify for both of us. All of those fellas are great. You know what I mean? Like they're truly great. Daniel Warren Johnson is I was shocked by, it was his Beta Ray Bill, right? I was really, really shocked at, no disrespect to him, I don't mean shock, but like I did not expect to have the clarity of purpose of that particular book.
Kind of where we are now, where you get shocked when you stumble across something amazing, which is.
But I mean, but that book was about self-doubt and being ugly. Yeah. That's like, think about how relatable that is, and how like there's nothing there that's losing anybody. Everybody has felt ugly, and to have a moment, or to have a book that is that hinges on like, it's like we've talked about Chainsaw Man. Chainsaw Man is contingent on I wanted to touch a boob, and it's like that's very relatable to everybody from 14 to 80, right? And like
it is relatable,
probably of any gender, right? So like, so it's, and then I'm not saying everything has to be the broadest relatability possible, but that Beta Ray Bill, I thought he came into his own a little bit as a creator, and I was impressed.
So I completely agree. So on the topic of AI, all right, this is somebody coming in hard with a statement. I don't know, Joe and I talked about this. Pat, get your take. What do you make of AI art? What's your general feeling?
Oh man. I'll tell you this. In July, I have a group chat, and I messaged them and I said, just so you know, this is the next topic where if a creator does this, they're canceled by the comics industry. And the entire chat was like, no, it's going to be way, way too long before this even becomes a major conversation. And what the fuck do you know? This has replaced NFTs as if you do it, you're canceled. Yeah. It's predictable. Comics needs one of these. The comics industry needs something to demonize, to take and just beat up on, because they need things to do. They need someone to hate. It gives them power. As far as actually using it, I haven't seen anything in AI art that is interesting to me.
What about this fat Captain America here? I mean, come on.
I mean, it's a cool single image, but like, to me, AI art is for a girl on Instagram that goes, oh, let me see how this comes out, And
here's where it's going to have the most utility is in the short term, is going to be for people that run YouTube channels who want thumbnail images quickly.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And that's going to be its short-term utility. Its long-term utility remains to be seen. I talked to my artist friends about it. They all feel very strongly about it, against it. Although half a year ago, when I think Midjourney debuted, an artist friend who is, there's people watching this who are familiar with his work. He started using it and said, I'm getting a real kick out of this. I'm using it for background textures. And look, if we're going to be honest and just clear-headed about a thing, if we look at how manga is produced, typically in a team, right? If we're looking at kind of the place that American comic art has gone, relying very often on digital modeling, right? I'm not saying these are the same thing at all, but I am saying that there's a great number of people right now who are railing against AI, who 50 years ago would not have been considered artists at all. And that doesn't mean that AI is that I'm an AI advocate, or that I don't give it. To be frank, my belief is that good artists are going to weather the storm. Artists who are stuck in and I work in games, so I can say this with confidence. Artists who are stuck in a ArtStation style of concept art are going to be outmoded fastest, right? But the kind of art that interests me, sequential art, it's going to be a long time, and there's not going to be. We're going to be able to detect a difference for a long time. But here's the caveat: the 4 people in this chat will be able to tell the difference.
Oh, for sure.
Oh, yes. Yeah, but that goes back to what you were saying too, Patrick, about voice. People who are interested in engaging with art are interested in art from an artist, whether that be writing, art. People want a human voice. I think across the board.
So I don't know if that's across the board, because when this is done, I'm going to send you my folder of terrible art, and it is I collect whenever I see comic art that I think is nightmarish. Okay. I just take a photo or I screenshot or however I can get it, and my fear is that we have lowered the standard broadly so much that there is going to come a time where the average person does not detect a difference between quality, low quality, and AI. And I think that could happen.
I'm eager to see the folder. Yeah.
Yeah, it's brutal. Some people will know what I'm talking about, but I think it missed a lot of people's radars. The crown jewel is a book from maybe 3 years ago where a man's thumb is on the wrong.
Yeah.
His thumb is not in the right place on his body. It doesn't exist on his body. So he's firing a gun with his thumb that is coming from the wrong angle. And that's because that artist used two separate, they composited two photo images and did not have the wherewithal to go, do men have two thumbs? Do you fire a trigger with a thumb? I don't remember. You know what I mean? So there's some really bad ones. And my point is, I had friends who loved the art on that book. Okay. That means that somebody can't tell the difference between where a thumb goes and where a thumb does not go. And that could be AI in the future.
Good. I mean, my question though is, does this person understand the meaning of the word literal?
No. I mean, look, maybe they do, and they just feel this strongly about it that this is the same as that, you know, those set of words that we can't say on YouTube. Maybe it's the same. You know, look. Mm-hmm. Here's what you got to take into consideration. There's lunatics of all stripes on Twitter. The only part of this that is a little concerning is the 456 likes.
It's unreal.
What if I told you this person works as an employee for Marvel Comics? Anyway,
I mean that makes 100% sense. I mean, I mean that point about the likes, I see that all the time, and I feel like it's a matter of who's posting it, not what they're posting. I'll see these. I mean, Joe sends me some of the most unfunny tweets that people put out thinking that they're the greatest thing ever. And Joe and I will laugh about it, but then I'll see that these tweets have fucking hundreds of likes.
Yeah.
And I'm like, what? How can, like, Joe, you'll recognize why it's cringe, but we could talk about that. But there are hundreds of people who see that tweet that's so cringe to us as something that's genuinely funny or smart. And it's like, I mean, the comics community in general, I don't know, man. We are
it's
all over.
It's weird because there is an element, I do think, of people just not even reading they don't read the tweets. They just like it. It's like, oh, it's another tweet from this creator I like, or my friend or something. I'm just going to like it. Like, there is that. There is, I don't think people who are addicted to the dopamine hit of likes and retweets understand how passive they are. Like, I liked tweets today. Like, if Pat or Patrick, you were just like, hey, Joe, you remember the tweet you liked around 3:00? I'd be like, what the fuck are you talking about?
It's a no stakes type of affection.
Yeah. And no joke, there have been times I have liked a tweet and then I realized it was unhinged and I thought I would only create more drama by unliking it.
Yeah.
Sure.
That happens.
So I just go like, oh, whatever. I don't care. Like,
it's all mythology.
And, you know, even though I like something because I read it and like the beginning starts off like, you know, like we all got to like stand together, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, that sounds good. And then you keep reading it. And then it's like, because if we don't, we have to literally strangle you in your sleep or something like that.
We should do a segment scrolling through your likes.
Exactly. We will at some point, Joe. Probably being on the show is going to do it to you. But anyway, This I don't know if you've seen this before. This is a couple years ago. William Vail took a AI script for a Batman comic and actually illustrated it. So it's not the art that's AI, but it's the script, and it's too small to see here. But this is one of the most amazing things. You go and you look this up online, and you will get like this panel right here, where Batman urges Alfred to give birth to a Robin, and the Joker hands him a card that is a coupon for 2 new parents, but it expired yesterday. This is a crazy fucking book. It is absolutely, absolutely incredible. So
I love that Joker bit. That's amazing.
It's a very good
would
bit.
read.
Yeah, no, also, better than some of the other things here.
But you know what I hate about that though too, because I also have to hate it because I don't understand how stupid everyone is when it's like these characters aren't supposed to know he's Bruce Wayne. They don't know his parents are dead, and people make that joke all the time. And I just want to be like, "Have you read a fucking Batman comic, you idiot?" Like every time.
You go. There you go.
Hey, can I ask? I don't know this bit, or maybe I forget. Who is Mumbles?
So there's a guy who clearly likes the show because he shows up in every show, and then he puts like one rose tweet, or if he's feeling pretty bored, he'll then do a couple more on there, and it's just been going on for like a year and a half, and you know it's a bit, but I don't think everybody quite understands that it's a bit.
Yeah, he said, fuck Joe and fuck these other 2 cucks.
Yeah. Oh, it's good stuff. So wonderful. He's fun. He's been around for a long time. He's part of the channel. The people who imitate Mumbles and then also like do their own Mumbles, then you get like 5 or 6 people. You only need one Mumbles. You don't need like 5 of them. So that's for what it's worth. Anyway, one more kind of depressing thing. And I think everything's happy after this point. So Aftershock. First of all, I'm just curious to all of you. Was Aftershock a surprise, the bankruptcy?
No.
Not even close. Not even close. But yes, continue.
Yeah. I was specifically told that this was going to happen 2 years ago. Yeah. And it didn't. I mean, the only surprising thing is learning that an entire industry doesn't know what Chapter 11 means.
That is shocking. Yeah.
Please don't get me started.
So,
man, by the way, I posted this video, and for whatever reason, I don't know if there's another one coming up. I have stuff recorded in the queue. I don't know where the fuck it is because I clearly don't pay a lot of attention to quality on the channel, as everybody knows. Mumble can verify, but Chapter 11, like I posted this thing saying Aftershock filed this. Here's what it means. Here's what going through all this stuff. It's unsticking kind of a situation that's bad. I had so many people write in going, "You industry shell motherfucker," saying that this is good news, and it is bizarre where we're at, where people do not understand basic financial terms.
Okay, so here's my take on Aftershock. I did 2 books with them, and I enjoyed my experience very much. I got paid on time-ish. I had to chase a little bit. I understand that a lot of people on Twitter think that that's a crime against humanity. I personally do not. I can self-advocate. So I did not care that much about that matter. I liked staff there. Was this a surprise? No. It's easy to get ahead of your skis, over your skis on these things where things are moving fast and they're telling you should put out more books. Are you a real publisher if you're not putting out books? What about our commitment to the producer team that we brought on, or whatever nonsense, the studio that we are tied in with? So not a surprise necessarily, but I do question, a lot of people have said this is good. Let's shake out the weak hands, right?
Mm-hmm.
And there's something to that. But I also think that Aftershock told a lot of 5-issue stories that are they absolutely necessary? No, but there needs to be an avenue for this type of book. And I think that they arguably at a different time could have had a much healthier share of the market delivering this type of book. But I'm sad to see him go if that is what happens. You know, I've got publishers in my texts saying they can't come back from this. There's no chance they can come back from this. Frankly, I don't know if they'll want to, but look, IDW has been the target of so much ridicule and so much like sort of energy for so long, and they still exist. Put out a good book occasionally. There are still credible creators that enjoy working with them, which is the thing we got to remember about all this stuff. Whenever we demonize some company, there's always some creator you really love who says, "Oh, that's too bad. I had a great time there." You know what I mean? And it's obviously that's because their experience will be different. Garth Ennis's experience at Aftershock may be different than the 30th man down the totem pole. But like, it's weird that we can't recognize any gray areas.
It seems like we should talk to Garth Ennis more because he could tell us about every publisher since he's done work for all of them. Yeah,
it's true. But with Aftershock, I've known Mike Martz for a long time. He's over at Mad Cave now, which is great. But when it comes to this, I remember I had a call with a friend right after Netflix, like that implosion was going on, like January this year. Like, and I specifically said, I'm like, I don't know how Aftershock survives this because their game plan was we're getting stuff optioned and the door is going to be closing on that. And the person I told that, I'm like, oh, I don't know about that. It's still so early. And it's like, I was right. But it's it's not shocking at all.
It's no, it really wasn't. But
let me just chime in on two comments here.
Yeah, please.
Mumbles says, "Move on to the next topic, guys. This sucks," which is so fucking hilarious.
In fairness, he's going to say that with every page.
Yeah.
And LK says, "Is Zenescope in good financial shape?" And I just want to say, I have been doing this shit since 2011, right? And I was staff at Zenescope, staff exclusive writer, 2012 to 2016. And the entire time there, every one of these cucks that I've met in comics that said that they were my friend encouraged me to leave. You don't want to be with them. You don't want this. You don't want that. Zenescope is healthier than any of the publishers that they work with. I would take my career fucking 10 times over. What Zenescope is doing is blowing my mind. How they took control of their company during COVID. And I mean, their live streams, the money they pull in is absolutely fucking insane. They will go on live and they will introduce a box of exclusive comics and they'll say a price. Oh, the box C is going to be $500. As they start describing what's in the box, before anyone knows, you see the comments, box C, box C, box C, just bringing in money, people buying blindly.
Yeah.
They are by far the most interesting company as far as business goes, bar none in comics right now.
Yeah, no, they're doing quite well. Somebody was asking like what other comics. Obviously, Valiant has some troubles. I don't think those are a deep rumor. Oni has some issues. There's a few in there that, but a lot of it is the same DNA. It's companies that really have a high part of their business leveraged against things outside of comics, and it's all speculative, and it's a bad time to be in that state.
It's also not to put anybody's business on blast, but like staff will kill you.
Yeah.
If you are overstaffed going into a recession, there's no way to make it look good. You're going to let people go at minimum, and you are going to. It could be worse than that, right? So there's a publisher that is really overstaffed, in my view.
Oh yeah, no. Some of these companies are holding. Valiant still has their office. I think. I don't think anybody's going to it, but they're still holding on to that property. I mean, it's just these monthly costs are death. But I so Patrick, you've never done this bit. Pat's done it a few times. Joe, it became a fun experience of torturing Joe with how many comics are coming out this month, and whatever number they would throw out, it tortured him. I'm not going to go through all the detail that I used to go through there because we haven't done it all year. But I'm curious if the three of you want to take a guess, and if people in the chat want to take a guess, how many comics shipped in 2022? Anyone want to? No, by the way,
whole year
for the whole year.
Oh man,
Not counting crowdfunding, not counting YA, not counting the manga graphic novels. Just through the direct market, how many comics in 2022? Anyone want to take a wild guess here?
We're not talking. Sorry, just for clarity, we're talking month to month, not how many.
Yeah.
Like, okay, so let's do the math.
New titles. Yeah, new titles, not like sold, not just new titles coming out. Like Marvel puts out, say, in 80 books. So how many in total for the year?
Right.
I would say 4,200.
4,200. Okay.
Yeah, I was gonna lowball it at more like 3,800 maybe, but like I should never underestimate foolishness.
Okay. How about you, Joe?
5,200.
5,200. All right. Well, there's over 6,000.
Oh shit. Okay.
I think this is related. This is sort of kind of the problem, maybe a little bit right here. Pat, you mentioned it earlier that there's a lot of books. There's maybe too many books.
Easily, dude. I mean, that's the number's insane. How many of those have any sort of a readership? Probably not too many.
Yeah.
I mean, well, think about it. A thing that to bring this to crowdfunding for a second, Pat Shand, if you could get 2,000 backers regularly, in your opinion, would you have more real readers than a book shipping 7,000?
I would have more real readers than a book shipping 50,000.
Okay, because
for real.
The thing that occurs to me is what percentage of our marketplace is speculators? I don't know the answer. I know that that's a healthy part of this business, certainly when you get into variant covers, etc. But let's say that it's, I mean, Perch, as a former retailer, what percentage would you guess is speculators?
It's less. I mean, it's greater than 50% at the moment.
Oh, see, okay, so that's interesting. I was going to say a third, because a third is dangerous. When you get to 50%, we're teetering on the edge of real calamity.
Well, because somebody put in here, how many of these are variants in this number? The answer is 0. These are unique titles.
Wow.
Yeah, this isn't counting any of the variant game, and that is a problem. And I was trying to get to one other number I wanted to throw up. I couldn't get to an accurate version. And by the way, there's always a possibility that some of these books solicited here in the last couple of weeks. So if the number winds up 6,241, I don't know. But anyway, it's the average sales of this are hovering below 2,000. I mean, in a lot of cases, this is very, very low level sales, but it's a lot of noise. And this is to me is the biggest broken aspect of where we are here with the direct market and comics right now. Because if you're an indie book and you're trying to sell through this and not crowdfunding like you two have done, I don't know what the fuck you do. There's no room for you in this.
No, it's crazy. And fun fact, Scout put out 2,000 of these books.
Yeah, you're probably right. I mean, Marvel and DC certainly shelf stuff, but for all the talk about DC being on the ropes, they're going to go out of business, all the stuff that permeated kind of the last 2 years, they still were averaging between 60 and 70 books a month out of DC.
Yeah,
that's how in the world does any of that go anywhere?
Well, so here's the problem, right? And the viewers who don't work in comics are going to have a different opinion potentially than some of us.
Yeah.
I don't know how to break through this noise, but because I'm still interested in selling books in the direct market, I can't have us do that thing where we say, let's just make it Each publisher gets 12 titles.
Yeah.
I can't do that because the fact is that the guys that fully have embedded themselves, like as I always say, Jason Aaron is not moving aside to make room for me. You know what I mean? I need something to percolate alongside of his success. I can't hope to replace him by virtue of him saying, "Hey, Patrick, I've noticed your work. I'm going to step down now and retire from comics." It's the Jason Aarons that'll be around forever if they choose to be, right?
Right.
So it's or until comics are, until there's 2-3 editorial changes and then they forget his name because they have no respect for him. But I don't know that they don't, but I'm just saying that like that's
you hit it right. Yeah, you hit it completely right.
But so I need all these books on the shelves, not because I actually need 6,000 books. It's because I need to be one of those desperate lotto holders, like trying to compete with these other people. So I can't have things shrink up. And to the readers that are like, yeah, but this is brutal. This is too much. It's static. I'm sympathetic. I just also need to break through as well. You know what I mean?
No, it's a situation. It means if you're going to be at this volume. So if you look at the 80s, you're around 2,500 or so, maybe. But you had the newsstand and you had other places to be. Yeah. It's the challenge is we haven't really changed the market. We're still trying the direct market. We're still trying the same things. I mean, the way the solicitations come out are the same way they've been done for like 30 years in the direct market. Yeah. But the volume has tripled. So therein lies a problem. It has not moved forward, but the volume has.
And I'll also say I have talked to, and I'm sure you all have too, multiple creators who have had multiple books at the Big Two, who have all said the Big Two puts out too many books, but it would hurt my career. It would lower my chances of continuing if they put out less books.
Yep.
Yeah.
And
it's a.
So I don't see an easy solution. I mean, it's a very, if there was an easy solution, perhaps somebody would have put it forward by now.
I mean, what I think the solution is what I hope, and Aftershock to me is not an example of this. Aftershock, I think, largely hired talented writers that I find interesting.
Sure.
Patrick, you, Zach and Lonnie did come into me at Black Mask, which was to me their most interesting work, and
I agree.
Picked up by Aftershock, of course. I think that Aftershock largely chased interesting creators. There are companies that hire, as a rule, the bottom of the barrel, right? Absolute bottom. And those companies exist on publishing books made to chase social media cloud, which doesn't make money. I think that if those companies can be obliterated, and in time they will, that number could go down while not taking away gigs from actually talented writers.
Sure. I'm sorry to derail us. I just saw a comment that I'd like to address. It's somebody said I don't really care about the volume of books being shipped. I just wish they were less expensive.
Yeah.
And I fully understand that. If it happens, you have to look at it as the actual death rattle of the comics industry. It is not good if prices go down. I hate to break this to everybody, but like if you see, and I've talked to Image, like what's the cheapest I can go? You know what I mean? Like because I have a couple projects that are fully paid for right now. What is the absolute bottom I can go? And I think it's like $250, right?
Mm-hmm.
But that would mean very little. That's like because I have a project that's paid for. I'd love to get it out in the world, get the most readers. It's almost a loss leader. If you're not at that $4 mark, you're sacrificing a lot of money. And Pat, I wanted to ask you. This is a radical notion about crowdfunding.
Yeah. Do
you believe that perhaps comics are just a what would you call it? A luxury item that is broken in the direct market because it it's a luxury item that cannot charge what a luxury item should, and that crowdfunding is the actual value of a comic. Because there's going to be a lot of people in this chat that don't want to hear you say that, but I think that might be the reality. Maybe a comic actually is $10+, and as somebody that knows the economics of them, I would argue yes, it has to be. But in the direct market, there's no way to get them there. Zero. So
it's true. No, I absolutely couldn't agree more. When we were putting together the Kickstarter for your book, I was on the phone with Matt Pizzolo, who runs Black Mask, and I was telling him what we were going to charge for the single issue, and he was like, "Really?" It's like, yeah, that is what it's worth.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's the comics industry, as far as the direct market goes. They're spoiled on very low titles. No, very low prices on these titles. Kickstarter has really shown that doesn't have to be the value of the book. The value is what people will pay. And when creators determine how much something's going to cost based on how much it costs to create, and the market says, yes, that's okay, that's the value.
Right. So yes, that is for sure true. To address the person, sorry, now I'm looking at the chat and I'm getting too chatty. To the person that says, what about Mark Millar? So I can't speak for Mark Millar's numbers. It's possible that there's an economy of scale here. If he is publishing, if he's printing a ton of books and they're actually being purchased by comic shops, then he could charge 55 cents if he wanted to. But frankly, I don't know that he's selling that number. But for most of us that are going to sell 20,000 or under, you can't go. You realistically can't go cheaper than $2.50. I agree with Image's assessment of that. So how does Mark Millar sell at $1.99? Maybe he sells 80,000 copies, and maybe he's subsidized by the fact that he's a multiple millionaire. I couldn't tell you. I'm just telling you what
it's scale. It's completely scale, and that's one reason why, if you're Marvel or DC, there is an argument that Marvel should be selling $2 because scale.
If as you keep going on, I'm not a big believer in digital, but as you keep going on, if they had an actual digital strategy that made sense, then perhaps they could. Do you know what I mean? Like, that's a different conversation.
They could. I think the economies of scale is a big issue here. Where the market is a big issue. All I know is looking at this graph, and by the way, the big spikes are usually months where there's 5 weeks instead of 4. But it's still, this is a fuck ton of comics. There's no other way.
Oh yeah, it is.
I mean, God help you if you're in March, but anyway.
It's a blessing that I'm employed enough that I don't have the time for this. But should things ever bottom out for me, I would like to take one of these months, read literally every single thing, and then say what had value at the end of this. Is the number 50? Is it 50 books were of value? I
was going to say 5%, man.
Yeah, I mean, it might be.
Yeah.
Might be.
It's painful, but at least Dynamite brought. This is kind of. Do you remember this? Does this give you some nostalgia, Pat?
Bro, okay, let me tell you this. I was just talking about this segment. I remember it could have been the second time that we did this. You showed me these covers for this bit, and I stopped the show. I was like, "Who is that fucking artist?" And you told me it was Lyrics. And since then, I've been hiring Lyrics on everything, including your book, Patrick.
Yes.
Dude is a beast. So I love this segment, not only because it's fun, but because it lines my wallet.
Absolutely.
There we
go. We have one Gargoyles cover.
Yes. Okay, so what's the bit?
We would go through the comics that are coming out in the next week, and then we'd show the Dynamite asses to kind of just people were happy they'd tune in for whatever reason. We'd see the people watching the show spike up.
Well, I'd love to talk about this real quick.
Yeah, please, yeah, because the longer we leave this on, the better.
So I don't know a ton about Dynamite. I wrote them the other day because the two fellows I work with on Image Books we have a gap before our next project, and I was like, these guys should be getting cover work. They're great. So I reached out to Dynamite, but who knows? Maybe there's not enough boobs on it. But here's the thing. I am now a firm believer that you can Trojan horse on Kickstarter. Mm-hmm. And what I mean by that is, if you have a story of any type that you want to tell that means something to you, you can package it in breasts.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. And it will find a readership that is breast centric, no judgments, right? No judgments. I don't give a shit what you're into. Yeah. That is breast centric, who also is grateful for a great story.
Yep.
So I'm not going to pretend that everybody looking at breast books is excited for literature, but I'm going to say that there's enough that I think a creator could find a real audience, a dedicated one, who is engaged in what they're doing and just also enjoys the trappings of good girl books or bad girl books or smut even, you know what I mean? So I think what Dynamite has done is smart. I think this is smart that they found their direct market version of this.
It works for them. I mean, it does, and it works for Xenoscope too. And again, if you're getting people in to read them, hey, it works out just fine. You read most of these books; they are the interiors are a lot more tame than the covers.
That's a fact. Yes, same with Xenoscope. Yeah. Yeah. Looking at these, I mean, Joe, you sent me, I think, the middle cover before, right?
Yeah. That's a Brett Booth's cover for issue 2 of Cherish.
Yeah, it's good. It's good. And what's the one? It's to the left of that one on the top row, the blue one.
I'll have to get the artist for you. I mean, it's Vampirella, of course, but I'll have to get the artist for you.
Yeah, that's
a nice
that one. To me looks like someone who could have done a solid Xenoscope cover. You know, these
for sure.
Yeah, these are good. Yeah, they're fun. Yeah, it's I respect this. You know, it's Patrick, what you're saying is right. When I first did Thirsty, that was my first full-out erotica on Kickstarter, and the replies that I got in Messenger, it was more than I've ever heard from readers ever. And you would expect the opposite because it's erotica, but people were almost extra happy that it had a story that had character arcs and themes. And my thought was, I mean, of course it is. You know, I wrote the erotica how I would write a comedy, how I would write a drama, how I would write fantasy. Just that's the genre, and within it, I wrote characters. I wrote my theme. But people in this subgenre, they see a great story as almost extra, because the truth is some of these companies do they sell covers. You know, the interiors are a means to an end. They're to pad cover to back cover. But when you have a creator who actually invests and actually cares and is actually telling a solid story within that, that rises to the top, is what I believe.
Yeah. Yes, I agree with that. Joe, do you have any interest in boob books?
I mean, I personally am not as invested.
Sure,
like, yeah. You know, but I mean, I edit them, so it's fine.
The money coming off of them is not bad.
Yeah, are you like how many good boob books do you see? And for the viewers, we're talking loosely. It's not. There's more to these books than boobs, but
The tough thing is more often than not the better, like, sort of boob centric books tend to be manga lately.
Yes. Yes.
And so, like, yeah.
And I find myself, when I'm shopping for manga, I will often ignore classics to go with something more subversive that just has like something that I can't get in the American market. And sure. I think that there's a lot of readers like that are just like, yo, give me the most scandalous thing you got, because I'm just not getting it elsewhere.
Yeah.
Remember when American Comics used to do that?
Yeah.
Well, vaguely. Very.
So that is Colette Turner, by the way, is the cover you're looking at.
Okay, Colette Turner. I'm vaguely aware of her art. She's someone that I should be hiring. That's
no doubt.
It's a good piece. The detail of the line work. You see a lot of these artists. They do get classified as cheesecake artists, but really, in a larger sense, they're collectible artists because they're using this highly detailed style that you would normally see on superhero comics back when they hired amazing artists. And you can see this detail here, and that for sure pulls in collectors.
There's a lot of good stuff. If you go look, she's done a few covers and she does very good work. So I would definitely check it out. But anyway.
Can I address just another thing in the chat, please?
Yeah.
Somebody said nobody wants to go back to newsprint. I don't know if they mean that creators are unwilling to go back to newsprint or if the readers don't want to go back to newsprint. But I will say that there's a complete misunderstanding at this time, not previously, but at this time, there's a complete misunderstanding of newsprint. I know for a fact that one of the biggest creators in comics was going to do newsprint recently, and looked at it, and the savings are not there. So for the people in the chat who are kind of like newsprint's a solution, some people have thrown out Alterna. I've said in the past, Alterna has a deal that they are, for good reason. I don't think very forthcoming about the details of that deal. I think that it's a special situation.
Yeah. There's some unique parts, but also it's again that scale. If you're Marvel, you've got a different price point from your printing because you're able to reserve spots and reserve paper. If you're Marvel and you go to newsprint, you're actually not getting very, very far. If you're a small press and you're going to newsprint, and you have a relationship with the publisher who will do it, it can be cheaper for you, but there's a major difference there between how many copies are coming out. And Marvel, DC, Image, none of them would benefit from it at this point. That's
exactly right. So I understand everybody's impulse is like, where can we save a couple dollars or whatever? I get it, but it's not newsprint. I wish it was. I'm doing something on newsprint. Trust me, I wish that it was a third of the cost. I really do.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It's unfortunately it wouldn't help where we really wanted to help, which is with the bigger guys, I think. So. All right, Patrick, you're new to this, but Pat and Joe are not. Have you missed this, Pat, at all, or?
Bro,
okay.
I think about it all the time.
I'm sure as the people watching this have probably confirmed, I'm not fast. You know what I mean? I'm not that clever a guy, so this is going to be brutal on me.
Okay, no, this is okay. There's as you'll find out, there's not a good answer, no matter what you come up with. All right, so we'll know have you go last. So Joe and Pat, this first one here on the left, we've got a manga book here. Boy looks kind of alarmed. The girl's squinting at him. What do you guessing this title is?
Title for the first one is My First Semester at Epstein University.
Okay.
Oh wow.
Nice. There you
go. Perfect. I like it.
I'm gonna go with the squeaky chair gets the boy.
Oh, okay.
You can see I can't compete with this.
No.
I can't compete with this. Dawson's Creek season 11.
All right, that's fair. Okay, that first was actually The Girl I Like Forgot Her Glasses.
You know what?
Yeah. Oh, the squinty eyes.
That's actually. I was trying to help.
Yo, manga titles are fucking fire.
They absolutely are. Yeah. No. In fairness, Jamie points out in the chat, we'll never get better off than Dick Fight Island. That was the pinnacle of this bit. Was Dick Fight Island, but which was, it turned out very descriptive. That was what it had. So the second book, this is kind of generic. She's just kind of standing there smiling.
Oh, this one is called My Body Pillow Has Achieved Sentience.
Oh,
that's a good one.
It's nice.
Good one.
Okay. All right. What do you say, Joe? Now, I'll point out to you, she's got a saw.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I was gonna. I feel like is it maybe handsaw job?
Oh wow, pretty good.
Okay, all right.
Yeah.
I was gonna say I lost the rest of my skirt in the gears of this industrial machine.
Now you're thinking like how these titles people.
That's a manga title.
It is, and you thought there was never a girl online.
What? No one ever thought that.
Yeah.
Perch, can I do it again, please? Can I do the
throw a different one out? Yeah.
No. That's not. I know it's somebody in the chat. I'm sorry, I'm getting into like industrial realities and just addressing the chat. Somebody's asking why don't we get magazines full of a variety of comics, like the way that manga is.
It would probably be a good idea in many ways, actually. Yeah.
Well, here's the thing. It's only a good idea if it survives the test period.
That's true.
And that's the problem. Is that nobody, as a guy who loves high quality anthologies, the rest of the world don't. You know what I mean? I'm alone in this, and there is a huge drop off. Your price point would have to be super low to get people to take a like. By the time you're at issue, let's say that you reboot the entire Marvel universe. By the time you're at issue and you publish it in that format, by the time you get to issue 12, it will be incredibly difficult to get people to be the person that starts at 12.
Yeah.
And I mean, they have this problem with all books, of course, but what I mean that is that you look at something that's packaged in that way and you go, 4 things I don't like, 1 thing I do like, pass. I'll wait for collection. Yep. This is the Dark Horse Presents model of, oh, that's so cool that exists, and nobody buys it.
Yeah.
So
it's true.
It would have to survive a very rocky period of low sales. After that, maybe normalize. Maybe so. The publishers would be taking a gamble.
You have to get it in there, and you have to get it to more spots. That's key too. You have to get into a lot more than it is today. All right. So somebody's saying the second title is mistranslated. We'll see. Okay, maybe there's a controversy here, but let's go to the third one. And if you can't see it really closely, what we see is a hand holding a banana and a bunch of girls that seem a little terrified of it. So,
okay, this one is called the Banana Blindfold Swap Out.
Oh, banana blindfold swap out. Okay,
nice.
Mumbles is actually participating now. 7 girls, 1 banana. Okay,
there you go. I was going to go with bananas, no pajamas.
Oh wow,
nice. I like that. Okay, you're rhyming for the holidays.
What about fruit cup erotica?
Fruit. Okay.
Ooh.
That's nice and spicy. It turns out my girlfriend is a show bitch.
Oh God. Okay. What's a show bitch?
I do not know, but I'm assuming it has something to do with food.
Okay.
See, they always twist you. All right, this last one.
Oh, I mean, the last one, I know what it is.
Okay.
Yeah, I know that story. That one is a gender swap bukkake show.
Okay.
Nice.
Very confident there. All right.
Nice. I was going to go with your morning wood disturbs the coven.
Oh, wow.
Good. Okay. By the way, somebody points out, Shogayaksi Elementary School, which
my girlfriend is an elementary school bitch.
Yeah, that's no good.
That's not good. We don't want that.
It's not ideal.
Not ideal at all. No.
Let's just strike that from.
Yeah, we'll just. Took a dark turn. I don't know, Patrick. What do you think?
Give me what's a city in Japan?
Tokyo.
Yeah,
that one I know. Give me something a little bit more.
Osaka, Chibi.
Osaka. Yeah, so we'll call this Golden Shower Osaka.
Golden Shower Osaka.
Okay. Right.
Jamie posted. What do you get? Show me your panties while cringing, which is actually kind of close. It is, I want you to make a disgusted face and show me your underwear.
That's the exact title. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's crazy. Shit. The cringing, I mean, that's pretty close.
Would
There you go.
Wow.
It is, anyway, so this is what's going on in Japan right now.
Excellent.
Seems a little more dynamic than what we got going on here. Sign me up.
Yeah. I do think,
right? Shabu, oh yeah.
Yeah. No. All right. Speaking of which, December 15th, 7 days ago, was Worldwide Otaku Day.
Thank God.
Yeah. Do you guys dress up and celebrate anything?
No,
I just carry Otaku Day in my heart.
Oh, there you go.
I just wonder if it's okay to just really enjoy something and not.
I mean, I refer you to the previous page.
Yeah, because you know, I really love manga. At this point, it might make up more of my reading than American comics. I've never felt compelled to you know, either dress as a samurai or a karaoke girl, or, you know. Yeah. But maybe I'm missing out. I don't know.
I think we should just be able to enjoy these things and not worry about it.
Like, is it possible? I always tell people that they should engage with their passions. Yeah. Sean Gordon Murphy's funny on that one. Nice. It's people should engage with their passions fully. So, like, let's say that because I've had people say I don't even know what my interests are, right? Mm-hmm. And I say things like, well, what if you just like feel really passionately about anything that you consume? So, like, let's say that you love watching these like ID shows about murder or whatever, right? Well, if you are, those might seem like the most passive interest you could have. But if you're then immediately reading 10 Wikipedia tabs and going on forums trying to solve the crime, then you're a passionate member of that community or whatever, right?
Yeah.
So I'm always telling people to get passionate, but I don't know. The outfit on the right certainly would fit me. I'm a slender guy, but I just don't think I'd look good.
That's fair. You know, I've been thinking about something, and I was wondering if I could quickly turn this into a brief Perch reaction video.
Oh no!
So you had a few videos recently about politics and comics.
Oh yeah, I love those because what I do is I can just screen capture, and it's the laziest video I could possibly do. Wonderful.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah. But and I would love to hear both your reaction, Perch, as well as what Pat and Patrick have to say about this. But the way you frame it is about how there's a lot of like, oh well, people are coming at this from exclusively on like the left. There's no real balance. It's all like left wing progressive kind of stuff.
Mm.
And my I don't know if this is a counter more than an explanation of like because the other side does not view it that way at all. And I've had a lot of conversations, particularly with up and coming creators, but also some people who are in there, and the way they view it is nowhere close to how you describe it.
You're saying people don't understand why other people are angry?
Yes, I'm saying they don't understand why people are angry. The way they view it, and this is part of why I wanted to say this, because it's not out there really, I don't think. At least with this audience, I'd love to like get that out there. So like, it's like this isn't like an agree. You can't disagree because it's what someone else thinks. You can't be like, no, they don't think that.
Yeah, people do try. By the way, I understand your point, but they do try. Yes.
Yeah, but this is what people. I'm not saying everyone. I'm saying that this is a subsection of the comics community absolutely thinks this, whether you agree or not.
Mm-hmm.
Big two comics, vigilante comics, are inherently right wing. That they, by virtue of someone being a vigilante, they are you're already dealing in libertarian politics. You're dealing in, when you're dealing with, pure capitalists, like this is, other thing, like with characters like Batman and Iron Man who are using their wealth and privilege to, oppress people outside the government. Like these kind of things. And again, it doesn't matter if you agree or not. This is just how people,
I've seen people talk about that, yeah.
Yeah. And this is people, coming up in comics, and some people who are in comics who are like, it's already so entrenched. Between that, they'll throw around that, it's fascist sympathizing, cop, that you'll hear propaganda all the time. It's like they're always they're constantly working with law enforcement. So anything they're doing that people are viewing as moving things to the left, it can never be far enough left because it is so inherently right-wing that anything you do is only bringing it closer to the middle, like, because you're already dealing with something that's baked in as right-leaning.
I would love to get somebody from, so I've heard this a lot. I've heard this from creators too, of like, well, the comic industry and the comics that Marvel and DC put out are generally right-wing. Yeah. And they believe it. They believe it. They're not gaslighting anybody. They believe what they're saying.
Exactly. 100%.
And so it's what you say. It's like, well, we got to bring it away from being right-wing comics. I would love to take somebody who truly believes it. Mm-hmm. And I'd love to put them in with some YouTuber who truly believes the other direction and just see if there would be a major fight or if it would just be silence because nobody knows what to say to the other person.
Yeah.
It would be hilarious to me. I got some video coming up. People often ask me, I get this mail about once a month. Don't you think it would be fair if they race swapped the Black Panther to a white character or had Ryan Gosling be the Black Panther? And whenever I see that mail, my answer is like, who the fuck wants that? It regardless, forget about whether that's fair or not fair. Who wants to see any of that? Well, how does that make sense on any level? No, nobody. This is not a. What are you doing? Like this argument always feels super nonsensical to me, but it is one of the most common ones I get. Like, don't you think they should do this? Why? Who wants that? Do any of you want that? Who wants that?
No.
I think my question is does Joe, do you actually want to hear my spiel on this or not? Because it's like
I want to hear what people have to say because I have opinions. Other people have opinions, but those are actual opinions that real human people hold.
Yes, and
it's true.
So my opinion on this, which is going to satisfy no one. That's why I asked you if you wanted to hear it or not. It's not going to make anybody happy.
I'm not happy. I wasn't happy before this.
I understand what those people are saying. I think there might be an element of overthinking it, but I think that there's another thing that doesn't get talked about nearly enough in comics, and people are going to hear me beat this drum a lot, which is that there's no politics in comics. This is a ridiculous notion. And what I mean by that is there's slogans and there's beliefs, but there's no politics because politics are boring and people don't actually want them in their entertainment. So when we see something like a very easy answer to like, why can't it be this simple that X, Y, or Z? That's not politics. And I've never seen politics in mainstream comics. And then the other conversation that I think is worth having is there's no such thing as radical politics in comics. There's no such thing as progressive politics in comics, because if it was radical, it would never appear in a corporate product, period. So there is no the best that they can hope for is the middle. There is no if you were actually advocating for something that was wildly radical or progressive, it wouldn't make it to print. You know what I mean? So right now, every comic book creator that believes that they are pushing their something that means a lot to them, probably, right? They're pushing that. They want that to be manifested in their entertainment. I regret to inform them, if it makes it to print, it's already an idea that your corporate overlords have deemed acceptable discourse. And that means that it cannot, by definition, be radical. It can be progressive-ish, but it can't be radical, and it can't be transgressive. Because if it truly was, you wouldn't be at Marvel or you wouldn't be at DC. Period. Those are owned by multinationals. There's no chance that you're, and again, is it possible? What's the I forget who said it, but can you dismantle the master's house with his own tools? No. You know what I mean? No, you can't.
Yeah.
So like it's you can't. Your little anti-capitalism screed in a Marvel comic is a joke to Marvel and to the readers. It's completely weightless because Marvel allowed that. You know what I mean? Like
it's yeah. I always, it cracks me up when people are like, these are radical ideas coming into a Marvel comic book produced by Disney with a character that's 50 years old in IP. I mean, just what are you doing? I think during the interview we talked about it's politics for kids. They are slogans. I think that's maybe it's slogans that are making their way into comics. These are not radical ideas. None of these are radical ideas.
But Perch, it's important to note that conversation. The reason I say that makes nobody happy is because to maybe somebody on the left, that is like, oh, that's bad news. I'm not making the impact I wanted. But to the right, it's also like, hey, maybe your fears are unfounded. It can't, like, these are already rote. By the time you read them in a Marvel comic, they're already, it's within the Overton window of polite discourse. So that's my unsatisfying.
I like
and I'll also throw in, I've gone to plenty of marches and demonstrations and things like that over the years, and I have never met anyone there or at any sort of rally or anything who was like, I used to be, completely checked out on this stuff. And then I started reading some Marvel comics, and I really decided, like, now is the time for me to get involved in the discourse and really play my part in society. It's like
this issue of Marvel's Voices taught me important lessons about order and how we're supposed to engage with the illegal unhoused immigrant. I mean, what do you do?
I do think that people they get so entrenched in the discourse on Twitter that they just look for something to argue about in every media that they consume. So they mine media for ideas to fight against, and they find it.
Sure.
I think that this need to withdraw something to discourse about in comics it's a sickness almost. It's constant, and it's always the cringiest topic. It's always something that really doesn't matter in the real world. And yeah, people for sure do believe in it and hold these beliefs, but I think that these are people who don't really critically engage. They just want to be talking about something, sort of just existing as a clout magnet, just to try to get retweets, try to get likes, and that is what sustains them.
For sure.
And I think Joe is raising a really good point that, like, hey, we're not having an honest conversation about these things because we're calling each other liars all the time, right? Like,
bro, yeah.
Right. And as a guy who, like, politically does not fall in with any of this discourse, I just see it as, like, we do got to acknowledge that both Joe and Pat are saying two halves of a thing, which is people do believe that, certainly, and then also there are a large number of people who they believe that, but they have no idea how it applies to the conversation that they're currently having. So let's say that I'm a very progressive person, and I want to put my beliefs into the world. Well, that or vice versa. I'm a very conservative person. Now, that doesn't mean that literally everything in life can be made some kind of locus for that. You know what I mean? And we do that too much in comics, and then we have this utterly disingenuous thing where if somebody says, "Listen, I hear you, but do you think maybe you're just kind of wedging it a little?" And then and then there's this reflexive thing like, you're trying to silence me in whatever respect, or and it gets so stupid so fast. And as a guy whose politics satisfy nobody in this fucking chat on any side of any aisle, it's deeply frustrating for me to watch, because I'm sitting there going, yo, I loved when Frank Miller was like a left-wing agitator, for lack of a better word, and I loved when he was a right-wing nut. You know why? Because I love Frank Miller. And watching him go through stages of his life where he's sometimes with eloquence and other times clumsily trying to bring his ideas forward is a joy, even when it's really not in line with my politics. You know what I mean? So I'm not satisfying to anybody on this.
It's possible to read a story about somebody or written by somebody who disagrees with you and still enjoy it. It's
yes,
but also a skill that's just lacking in so many people. And unfortunately, I'm about to mention someone who passed away this year, Alan Grant. Alan Grant and John Wagner. I think it should be required reading for a lot of people who are writing comics or into comics to read what those two did on Judge Dredd, because they are, the politics are, it's left, right, it's all over the place, but it's all, you are constantly dealing with having to root for people you would hate. And it's just, it's so good.
The best, you're absolutely right. The best Judge Dredd material is fascinating because it's avowed leftists having a great time writing a quasi-fascist. And that is there, because the people that wrote Judge Dredd, at least for the first 15 years, were very gifted. It works. You know what I mean? And that's part of the problem, is that like maybe we're not dealing with a ton of gifted people.
Yeah, I mean, I do want to say too that I also think it's important, Joe, that you reiterate that these people actually believe this. I think that the idea of the other side not believing what they say they believe is such a toxic and common idea now. You see it in every possible avenue of political debate. You see it in, I mean, God forbid we talk about it, but the abortion argument. The left believes that the right isn't doing it because they believe that babies are dying. They believe that the right wants to take power from women. The right believes that the left is callous about killing babies. Neither side believes that the other is actually believing what they say. And that is true for every topic. On my first stream with you guys, I believe, we talked about the idea of how the left and right have different phrases for the same concept, and they believe that the phrase when used by the other side is incorrect. The left for a long time said that there's no such thing as virtue signaling. It's not real. But then they made up performative allyship.
Yeah.
Hey, big bitch!
Same fucking thing. Yep.
Same thing. But if the left were to hear that, they would say, oh, there's no such thing as virtue signaling. People mean it when they say this shit. Whereas when I brought up the idea of performative allyship being the same thing, I saw it in the comments, what's performative allyship? That's the same shit. Each side can never agree on what they already fucking agree on, much less what they disagree on. It's absolutely insane.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, cool. All right. I love how we got to abortion. I did not have that on my punch card. It all makes sense. So we always end these things with some comics that came out this week. While I show those, curious what you guys think. So 2023, where are we going? Your craziest prediction? Where do you think, what's going to happen next year?
Okay.
Oh man, I'd say we're gonna see some comics creators canceled. I think that we're gonna see some indie publishers have to go back in the vault. I think that we are gonna see more creators, more big name creators go to crowdfunding and grow that market for sure. I think that we're going to see me personally make stacks on stacks on stacks.
Nice.
And I think that we're going to see the mainstream companies continue to struggle.
So this is tricky to talk about without sounding like you're wishing ill on somebody. And I'm not. I used to be such an accelerationist with comic stuff, where I would say like, yeah, let's burn it all down, fuck this shit, right? But I think we as adults can all recognize that even in times where that might prove necessary, the rebuilding costs can outweigh. It can be too much, and sometimes a fragile industry may not come back at all in the respect that we want it to. So I've backed off of my burn it all down viewpoint here. And of course, there might be some hypocrisy in there. You know what I mean? I have a little foothold in comics now, so perhaps I'm just self-interested. But whatever the case, you don't want to sound like you're wishing unemployment on anybody. You don't want to sound like you're wishing, and I don't have an ounce of that in me. But it's doubtless that there is going to be, and again, I don't have a crystal ball, but like, let's just be smart.
Mm-hmm.
Marvel and DC are going to see some type of restructuring.
Yeah.
Now, the extent of that, I mean, I'm not saying anything wild, right? That's just obvious. But the extent of it, you know, look, there's a lot of people watching this that have the same complaints over and over again, which is you're literally moving these chairs around. You know what I mean? That's all you're doing. There is no real change here. Even when there's a new editor-in-chief, even when there's a new head, it feels like the old head. You know what I mean? Like there's not enough change here. And I think that particularly, by the way, everybody, for those of you that care about Marvel and DC, we get lost in the weeds of like, this editor-in-chief doesn't like Nightwing. And it's like, come on, like we're getting lost now. You know what I mean? Like, because I don't think that those are like the type of specific mandates that we have to worry about. I think that if you're worried about the strength of the industry, something does have to change. And whether that's current staff having a moment and saying, look, like we need to reinvent ourselves in a meaningful way, or it's, you know, maybe unfortunately everybody is purged and there's a reset in that way. It's happening in this year. Like there's no way around it, because we can talk all day about how sales are up. They're up for somebody. They're up for Pat Shand. I do not believe that they're up for the big two in a way that is sustainable. You know what I mean? And somebody eventually will notice. So I think that we have that in store. We're going to lose two of the smaller publishers. And what else? Crowdfunding will probably expand. I don't know what the recession influence might be on it, but that's my predictions thus far. And I think there's going to be some shakeout on the talent level as well, where maybe worst case scenario is that the lowest rung is elevated, and the best case scenario is that the lower rung is shaken out entirely for at least the time that it takes for them to master their craft. I don't know which. It's really going to depend on who these editors-in-chief are. You know what I mean?
It's definitely. I mean, we're definitely going to see some people vanish. I agree, and I do think that that Marvel and DC have a weird, troubled year ahead of them. I think that it's. I think what you said there about people noticing. I think this is the year where a lot of what's been said, maybe in the undercurrents, like, hey, you're putting out too many fucking events. Like 12 events in a year per publisher is too many. 90 books a month is too many. I think those comments are going to actually have some weight this year. It's a bubble. It can't hold.
Let me just ask really quick too. In the comments, Deep Video Live says the panel just doesn't see how the things they have described as political blindness actually applies to them. Boom, roasted. I want to ask though. I mean, I haven't heard Joe, Patrick, me, or Perch state a political opinion. I don't know what that could possibly be about.
Oh, well, but it's fair to say that there's probably a number of issues that we have some blindness on, but I don't suppose that like tennis dude 420 or whatever in the fucking chat is the one to incite to give us some insight on this. Everybody has some type of blindness on this.
I mean, I just want to know what mine is. You know, I'm curious.
Well, I'd be curious if anybody in this chat could even divine my politics by this conversation. Yeah, you're right.
I mean, bro, mine too. You know, we haven't said anything.
I mean, no offense to any of it, but the takes we're giving here, in particular politics, are not exactly earth-shattering takes. It's people are phony. Oh, who knew? Could have never imagined that people come up with the same things to complain about each other. Anyway.
Yeah,
it is. Maybe there'll be some clarification, but I think. But hey, look at Namor looking like a pimp here.
Yeah,
I didn't even ID him. I was looking at the cover, saying, "Who am I looking at?" It's a good Namor. Honestly.
Yeah, I wouldn't know either.
Yeah. But when it comes to next year, I think and again, it's early; it's not next year yet. But I think, kind of, sort of, in terms of what people were saying, I'm kind of predicting it might be just Marvel or just DC, or it might be both. But I think we're going to see the bigger names like consolidate. Like there's going to be a smaller pool of bigger names, and then there's going to be a bunch of people have like never heard of that are going to be like tackling like books that you would have thought like name talent would like be on. Like we're going to start getting runs of things, be like, oh, they're doing a new they're rebooting Wonder Woman, they're starting at issue 1 again, and who's writing that? I've never heard of that person. Or you're going to be like, oh, and then over at like Marvel, like, oh, they're doing like a new Moon Knight or Ghost, they're going to relaunch another book, and you're going to be like, who?
Yeah.
I don't know. Like, I think we're going to get some more, like, I think stuff like that's going to happen.
I think you're right. And I think it's such a funny thing, because that sounds so exciting until you look at the track record. You know what I mean? Like that sounds like, because we would really benefit from some type of like another British invasion. You know what I mean? Like whether it's the Argentinian invasion or whatever the hell it is, where we have a brick of creators that is just, and I thought that perhaps like the Ram V's of the world, like, because he's got like a clique around him, I thought maybe that would be the type of thing. Or like, look, even for the, I don't want to stereotype the chat. I'm not looking at it right this second, but like, when we talk about kind of like the team comics, for people that don't know what that is, it's like a whatever, like the team comics, like internet presence sort of people. There's a couple of them that are their own block, right? Like like certainly, like Rosenberg got Vita. Got Vita work, and then Vita got Danny work. That's like, in principle, that's cool. You know what I mean? Like that's what we would want. We would want people, and if that, tastes vary, right? Like maybe you don't like their work, maybe you do, but like, sure, we would want some type of new crop. The problem, Joe, and what you're saying is that nobody trusts these companies anymore. You know what I mean? So like everybody who just heard what you said went, oh shit. But look
at Namor's green dick there. I mean, that is something that's going to make the Invisible Woman forget all about Reed's stretchy dick right there. I mean,
well, that's
very true.
Yeah. Sorry.
No, but I also think like people were saying, there's going to be a couple of other companies that are going to either they're going to fall or like to do, or they're going to be drastically cutting their line. Like things are going to happen. So like a company like Oni will like maybe next year will like officially shut their doors, and then everyone's going to have the conversation of like, oh, I thought they were done already, and then everyone's going to be like, no, they were still doing like the Rick and Morty comics and a couple of other things, and they had like a skeleton crew doing. Oh yeah, that's right. Like so we're gonna have that. Trying to think what other big stuff is going to happen.
Somebody kind of mentioned this. I don't know if this was meant to be a joke or serious in the chat, but it is actually serious. So there's this little kind of underlying story that I think is going to bubble out here probably over the next couple of weeks, and that's Barnes and Noble is going to cut back pretty significantly on their U.S. graphic novels section. The returnability was high. It was actually called out in their report as that part of the business is not moving, and they're pulling it back.
I mean, they have so much stuff from small publishers that I mean, I've gone there and seen their display, and when my shit isn't there, I make angry phone calls because everything else is there. You know,
Yeah.
So I couldn't imagine that much of that sells. I worked at Borders for a long time. I went down with that ship, dude. Chapter 11 to close, and then I worked at Barnes and Noble, and even back then, no one was really buying from the graphic novel section. There were a few nerds, you know. I mean, no, but the truth is that those sections were always overstocked. There would be books that would just live there for a long time, and it's a shame. I would love to see a healthy book market, but the truth is that the healthy book market, they stock those in the young adult section. You know, those aren't in the American graphic novel section.
No, it's weird. So you have to get the hands. Maybe this is a video I'd have you guys on. We could read through the pages. It's actually kind of a fascinating bit of analysis from the company where the independent graphic novels are selling okay, particularly when they disperse them throughout the store.
Yes.
The mainstream, the Image, Marvel, DC ones are not moving at all.
Right. The
manga is doing well. They have this new deal with Warhammer that they're getting going, where they're going to start carrying more of that. The toys are going well. It's just this turnover of the store is fascinating to me. But there's this underlying thread there where what happens, to your point about Marvel or DC maybe restructuring, what happens if that market starts to shrink on them? That's been carrying more of Marvel and DC than I think people understand.
Here's what happens is that anybody that can leave does, and then anybody who can't leave is slowly let go in three different purges in between those morale is dog shit because everybody's waiting to get purged, and we have the same misery from these two companies that we have seemingly always, you know what I mean?
The weird thing too is, like, to not end this on the most dour note possible of like, well, I guess everything's done, see ya guys, would be
this glass of whiskey's done.
Yeah. But it's annoying and stupid, but there's a chance that's what's going to happen as a result of this is people at Marvel and DC will be like, this is going to be like a last-ditch effort. Like, instead of playing it safe, maybe we take some risks. And then they're going to put out some stuff, you know, in the next couple of years that they're going to take risks and people are going to respond to that. And then they're going to be like, oh, wow, maybe if we took some risks and didn't try playing it safe to a shrinking and continually constricting audience.
It's never the lesson, Joe. It's not their nature to take that as the lesson learned.
No, but the lesson learned will be, oh, that risk paid off. So what if we duplicate that risk 80 times a month?
Right. Yes.
Yeah.
Exactly.
But yeah, I think it has to happen. Something has to happen.
He'll have a nice Alex Ross cover as it goes down.
Yes.
I hope that would be amazing if they could commission Alex Ross on their to do like I don't know, like the ledger at the top of their like mass firing letter.
Good Lord, I've been dark. I'm just thinking the series on what the fuck happened. How did we get to a place where the movies are making billions of dollars and we weren't able to capitalize on it? The 12-part documentary with Alex Ross covers.
Yeah, no, but I mean, who knows? But things do have to change, and something it has to. Like they're just for themselves, for everyone. I would love to enjoy, you know, a bunch of really cool comics. The retailers I've talked to, and I don't know, I'm sure you have all talked to other retailers in the past couple of months. Like either disinterest or straight up disdain towards dark web and some of these other events coming up.
It is
like straight up.
It is amazing. I went to a shop today in the Dallas area, and they were there. It was what you described, and I've seen people disinterested. I hadn't seen pissed. And the dark web event was, and the Lazarus Planet event, people like the retailer there was pissed. Like just strangely felt like this was some kind of an attack on his business in some weird way, but just angry. But speaking of angry, hey, this week, a couple of years ago, look at that Amazing Spider-Man, the comic everyone loves.
What is What is happening on the cover? He's unzipping / ripping an image to reveal a closer shot of the same image.
Yeah, it basically what's happening on this cover is thoroughly pissing off the Spider-Man readers for 2 decades.
Yeah,
Okay.
but
That's what this is conveying.
I don't know.
The unzipping with no zipper is the most ugly design thing I've ever seen.
It's so weird.
Yeah,
I hate it.
Yeah, it's like a zipper.
Sad.
Yeah.
Is it a villain whose ability is opening up the reality without a zipper? Just give me a zipper.
So that's Mephisto, and he is ending the Spider-Man marriage.
Oh wait, it's a mirror. It's a mirror. We're all being stupid. It's okay. So
is it?
It's got.
Oh, all right. You're right. Okay,
one,
you're right. 2, horribly designed though, right?
Yeah.
I mean, who was that asshole artist who did this?
Yeah.
Let me say the other the previous slide had some Marvel DC thing. I hear people talk about this as like a good idea. I hate these books more than I have words to describe them. Words fail me in how bad I think those crossovers are. They're never entertaining. They never have any gravity. They're terrible. Who wants these? Like I've read 10,000 DC books I love, 20,000 Marvel books I love. You couldn't get me to read those crossovers with a gun pressed to the side of my head. I hate them.
No, and I'm sure there's some fans of it, but the Spawn Batman book was awful. I'm sorry. I like Greg Capullo. The art was fine, but even he looked kind of bored. But that story, like, come on, Todd. I mean, Todd, you're a Ghost Rider. Jesus.
Yeah, no, that
was not a good comic. I'm sorry. But what I like here is the juxtaposition of we got Star Wars there, still only 35 cents, and we got Amazing Spider-Man, still only $3.99.
Oh, well, still great.
Yeah, I think that feels like the extra little jab right in the heart.
When is this Spider-Man book from?
This would be, let's see, when was One More Day? That was 2003 or 4, right?
Wait, how long have comics been $3.99 for? What?
It's been that way for a while.
Is that is time just lost all meaning to me? That it's been nearly 20 years of fucking $3.99. That's crazy.
Yeah, was that like double size or something? I mean,
must have been.
It's 2008, I think.
2008. Okay, it was further along. It's still been a long time, but then in comics, a lot of them are at $4.99 at this point anyway. So
yeah, Marvel was starting to creep up to the $4.99, and because that was like a couple of years, like 3 years, I guess, before the New 52, where most of the books were still holding the line at $2.99.
Yeah, this just feels like a big fuck you move. But anyway, I think this last one. But speaking of a fuck you move, how about this Ultimates 3, number 1?
Let's see. Ultimates 3, number 1.
Yeah.
Hate that. Really fucking terrible trade dress here, as they say. So that's the Ultimates 31 bad.
Yeah.
Look.
This was where they revealed.
Is that Joe? Is that Joe Mad? Is that Joe Mad?
That's Joe Mad. He had to draw this issue, which revealed that Scarlet Witch and Quicksilver were fucking each other.
You know what? Listen, those things always get derided.
Yeah. In
terms of like left field, Jimmy Olsen has a fly's body now, but a man's head sort of reveals. Incest pretty wild. You know what I mean? Like it caught me looking. You know what I mean? I was like, oh, whoa, okay, I didn't expect it. So in terms of being, subverting my expectations, as they say, subverted.
Subverted. Okay.
And that new X-Men. That new X-Men run, me, you, and Larry talked about that a couple of years ago now.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's it's an interesting run.
Almost the conclusion of Grant Morrison's run. He had that 4-parter after this, but this was where he killed off Magneto, and then immediately had the character brought back to life.
Yeah. So I don't remember this issue particularly, but the front end of that Morrison run was really interesting. I think that it didn't end on a high note, if I recall.
Not only because, but it needed more Frank Quitely.
Yes.
He really, him barely being on that run hurt it a lot, I think, in, going back and rereading it. And the Zorn stuff was not thought out and makes zero sense.
I hate to say this about, I got a lot of admiration for Morrison, obviously, but that was gibberish.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
I mean, dude, the attention to the detail on the lighting of Wolverine's bulge is crazy here, though, huh?
God bless.
Well, is that Phil Jimenez?
He's got metal in there. I mean, it's going to stand out.
Oh boy.
Anyway, yeah, there we go. Well, speaking of kind of wrapping up, here's from Crossover, and this is where the writer actually killed himself in the book.
What?
You know what? Honestly, the Zdarsky issue of Crossover, where Zdarsky's like, I'm like a fraud, I'm a character, I'm not a real person, I thought was like at least very interesting. You know what I mean? Like, it was like too self-reflective to the point that I'm like, well, now it's self-serving. But it was kind of like when he's like, that's not even my government name. You know what I mean? Like, I made up that character to be like a goofball on the internet, and I got work. I thought that was kind of a little interesting. Is this the end of Crossover?
It's hard to say. Maybe there will be more. Maybe not. I don't know. He's dead though.
I'm just so over the self-indulgent bullshit, especially when you're playing to such a small crowd at this point. It's like, oh, a writer writing themselves in a book again, and they're waxing poetic, and I'm like, just fucking.
Am I wrong, or was there a Cott book where he didn't finish? He just like had himself address the reader and go like, yeah, I had a lot going on in my life, so I just couldn't.
Rings the bell, yeah.
Now, listen, one of my favorite, one of the most. This is the difference between a good writer, bad writer, and a great writer. Is when it's Morrison's Animal Man, right? It's Morrison. So Morrison's Animal Man has that moment that is like kind of bracing when he addresses the reader. You know what I mean? And particularly if you are like an animal rights, animal welfare person or whatever, it can punch you right in the heart. But he's also a great writer. Do you know what I mean? So it's but it's very difficult to pull off a, hey, this is me talking to you. I'm a micro celebrity. You might or may not know me.
But like when Grant did that in Animal Man, they were coming off as they were the writer, the creator. It wasn't this blowing smoke up their own ass kind of thing that Crossover does. And I'm someone who genuinely enjoys multiple things that Donnie's done, but like that kind of thing, and like what Chip did, like it wasn't the same thing. It wasn't that like throwback to like that Looney Tunes episode, where they're like, it's like who's drawing like Daffy or something like that. It's this like, I'm so interesting and unique, and I have to talk about myself. It's like, oh please.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, look, it's a thing. Like we see this in films about Hollywood or about screenwriters. It's like it's very rare that a person who writes is that. Most of us are not Hemingway. You know what I mean? Most of us did not have like interesting lives of any real fucking type. Even like Tom King. No disrespect to Tom King, but like even when they were like, he's in the CIA, guys. It's like, well, like. I guess that's something, but most of us do not have, it's a lot of indoor kids. It's not like a ton of, the idea that anybody would be interested in our lives is a little misguided, I think.
I'm with you.
A little bit.
Well, folks, it is 11 degrees outside, so that's fun for Texas. Let's see. I think based on what people normally do, I should head to Cabo, I think, right about this time. That's what you're supposed to do. But look, Patrick, Joe, thank you very much for coming back and trying this again. And it's been fun. We took a lot of different directions.
A lot of different directions. Everybody go check out Pat's Kickstarter, active now. and pick up Joe's books. And Perch, thank you for having me on. I appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's great.
Have to come back again, and we'll do this again probably about this time next year. So I think we'll be getting back together sooner than you think, potentially much sooner than you think. So.
That sounds awesome. Yeah, I love doing these. I love all the bits. Cool talking to you guys as always. Yeah, cool to see you doing that.
As Mumbles says, never invite these guys on the stream again.
There you go, Mumbles. Thank you very much for all your support this year. The check is in the mail as always. So.
Mumbles did. I will say he did list me as his favorite among you guys. So
you were the
true.
That's true.
Somebody's got to take the first place.
That is absolutely. Thank you for everybody who showed up. Yes, to everybody who came by and said hi. Thank you for remembering that we're out here. I'm always surprised anybody shows up. So to listen to my bullshit, but these guys are great. Thank you, everybody. Talk to you soon.